Hey friends, it's Nicole, and I am back with volume 2 of my trip to England in 2013. It feels like just the other day that I was there, but 2013 turns out was like 9 years ago. Blowing my mind. All right, so I've already showed you the first volume. Hopefully you saw that with all my Harry Potter stuff. This is a continuation. It says England and Disney Paris, mostly because I wanted to use that I See London, I See France for my first title page. But these first two books are only England. Disney Paris will be the third book. And you notice I didn't go to regular Paris. I just went to Disney Paris because, well, you guys know me. That's why I went to Disney Paris. All right, so this is my little niece that I showed in the first book. And my sister had this beautiful little garden, and Alice was so sweet to pose for me. And this little dress, this little red velveteen dress, had been my daughter's, who at this point was probably, 12 or 13. And so to have her little 4-year-old niece get to wear this little dress made me so happy. And she's just so photogenic, and oh, that red hair. This is like a metallic flower paper. No clue where I got it, any of this stuff. Sorry about that, guys. But I love this kind of layout. I've done this before when I have mostly vertical pictures. You can do it like with a 5x7, and you have one thing that bumps out and breaks the line. I think makes it very visually interesting. This one, again, was probably a horizontal photo. So instead of trying to fit the horizontal photo in here, I just trimmed it down to the part I wanted. And then that way I didn't have to choose which one of these cute little pictures of Alice to put in. I think I like that one the best, with their little hands on her hips. All right, we went to Kensington Palace. Julie, again, had something she had to do for work. So I went by myself to Kensington Palace. This is another kind of a pocket for a brochure. And this one is just done with paper. I did just fold the paper and to make an envelope and cut it on an angle so that when I go to put this back in through the page protector, it's not that hard. Can just scooch it on in. So, you can pull it out if I had somebody that was going to England and wanted to look at, Kensington Palace map or whatever and see the actual thing, you can pull it out. But really, truly, it just works as kind of part of the layout design. Put my ticket in here because it was pretty, and just some background paper with this little embellishment, no clue where the paper came from. And of course, a fancy kind of palacey font that is probably from duffont.com. So that's where I get a lot of my fonts, and then I cut them on my silhouette. So here's Kensington Palace. Another brochure here where I put the little brochure from this. It talks about all the different rooms, the different dynasties of the people that have been residents of Kensington Palace. And so once again, I just put this little strip of paper that I can then slide this over, and it holds on to this, keeps it as part of my layout, but you can pull it out and look at it. These are some pillows with kind of embroidered representations of the different people who've lived here. The bottom right here is, William and Kate, who still live in this palace. We get to tour like the front, this side of it, and they live on that side of it. And can you imagine having people kind of in your house, but not really, because, we don't get to see the side where they live. Here's another little booklet that I saved. I do love to save memorabilia. Don't always know why I do, but the same thing. This was like a choose your own adventure game where you pick up and play. So I got that in there. I said that Palace was not built to be a tourist attraction. I had a bit of trouble finding my way around, and I certainly didn't manage to see things in chronological order. But of course, people live there over all sorts of times, and so the house probably isn't in any kind of chronological order. So here's a section about Victoria. I said I knew that Victoria was the longest reigning monarch, but I didn't know much else about her. Certainly not that she had had so many children. Now I've, of course, seen that Victoria show on Netflix or whatever. I know more than I did then, and I was kind of surprised how little I knew about the British monarchy. So you can see I use kind of a lot of reds and stuff in here, kind of that regal reds. Plus I like pink. But just very simple. This paper has like embossing. The green one has this white floral embossing on it. I have no idea where it came from, you guys. Just, it's been a long time. But this has some embossing. Put a little, I think the stripe is built in. So I didn't even have to put the stripe. Makes it so easy when you have a paper that's already got some decorations put on. This background paper is probably a little bit busy for this page, but oh well. You know, what are you gonna do? If you can't use busy paper that looks like wallpaper for a palace, you know, what else can you use it for? I said I got to the Cupola Room. I managed to join a guided tour. It was so informative, made my visit a lot more satisfying. I said, oddly to me, people kept dropping out of the tour group, and after half an hour, our guide ended the tour, even though it was supposed to be an hour long. I'm sure it wasn't fun for her for talking to only 3 of us, but I was disappointed. So still, the parts I got to see were great and free. So I think I paid for to go in the palace, but not for the tour. More of this embossed paper with already built-in lines. So I just don't have to do anything. I just put my pictures down, and the background paper did all the rest of the work. Palace Gardens, more of that embossing. It must have come from Joann's. Joann's used to have like packets of paper, like in a plastic. It could have been close to my heart even, or Stampin' Up. I don't really remember, you guys. I'm so sorry. So I said we neglected to choose a spot. So after I'd seen all the public parts of the palace, I wandered outside to walk in the gardens, thinking I'd see her. I didn't. And so I finally went back inside, and she was waiting inside for me. And then we walked around the park. This might have been CM paper. This had like some embossing. For whatever reason, this one feels like it was CM to me. Kim, my sister, was still around, but she had to work. So we walked through Kensington Park, got somebody to take our picture at the Peter Pan, and then walked through the other things and got the last pre-rush hour train. The rates change at rush hour, so we were able to get back on there. So I said it was my sister and brother-in-law's 15th anniversary, so I stayed with the kids, babysat for them to go out to dinner. You know, it's a long way to travel to babysit for your sister's anniversary, but what a nice thing to do. So this was a fun thing. The LDS Church was doing their big I'm a Mormon campaign, and the entire Charing Cross station was set up with this I'm a Mormon campaign, which I thought was really cool because I, in fact, am a Mormon. And I probably should have capitalized that now that I think about it, but I don't think they capitalized it in there. So the next day, Kim had the morning off. We went and rode the London Eye. That was super, super fabulous. They have a place where you pose and you look out and it takes your picture. And of course, I bought the picture, shows you here where you stand. I was able to get this image of the London Eye, I think from their website or something, and cut it on my silhouette. And I just love the way that it turned out. So it's just blue cardstock with this one cutout image, and my ticket, and the pictures. And I think it works great. So the pictures we took from that. And then this is the this 360-degree viewing guide. It came in this pocket, but I cut this. So the guide originally only opened at the top, but so that I could put it in the right way to be part of my layout, I cut along the side. I said, pull it out and see for yourself. And this was a really cool thing because they give you this this guide so you can look, and it tells you what direction to look and what you see from the London Eye, front and back. So I'm sure that I paid for this, but it's so much easier to justify paying for something like this when you know that it's going to go in your scrapbook. So I can kind of look and see, you know, what these things are. St. James's Park, you know, Center Point, Somerset House, Waterloo Bridge. Daytime and the night one. I didn't get to write it at night. If I ever go back to England, I'll maybe try to write it at night because that would be cool. Okay, now I've got to figure out how to put it back together. All right, so then it folds up into this pie wedge and I can just stick it back in here. All right, so that's fun, a fun way to add memorabilia. If you remember from the last album, I just had this London paper and I just kind of used strips of it all through the just random pictures in London. I said we did a lot of walking in London. Kim and Julie are used to that, but it was a big change for me And they both walk a lot more quickly than I do, so I was always behind them. That was kind of the story of my life, was me asking them to walk slower and them telling me, we are walking slow. So just pretty cool, you know, nice sights in London. I love seeing the wacky British signs. The bodies of the people on the caution signs were my favorite. You know, I'm going to die. I said this one isn't funny. It's just nice to see that they spelled panini correctly in the plural, because a lot of times we see paninis. So then we went to the Tower of London. Again, my ticket, this looks just like my ticket to Kensington Palace. And I have my little brochure slid onto a little strip. But then I always take a couple of brochures so that I could open one up and put kind of the map. I said it's probably a tourism crime not to visit the tower on your first visit to London. I would have liked to take the Yeoman Warder guided tour, but our timing was off. Luckily, Julie makes a pretty fantastic tour guide, and she had been here before. So this one I just used on light gray paper, but you can see I made a stencil and I used a sponge, and I just kind of very softly sponge kind of the ramparts, if that's what those little crenellations at the top of a castle are. And so all these Tower of London have just these little tower things up at the top. See, I think that looks pretty cool. And all I did was cut this little stencil and then sponge and kind of, you know, taper it down into here. I said we did get a short tour of the White Tower, which is the oldest part of the compound. More pictures. The weather couldn't quite make up its mind. Sometimes we think it was going to clear up, and other times we get prepared to run for shelter. Here's another 8x12. And I love an 8x12 because you still have room for you could do a whole 4x6. I trimmed this one down just to give it a little bit of space. But just all these cool Tower of London pictures. The room in the White Tower has a side chamber that was one of England's first indoor toilets. How's that for a thing? Of course, it's going to be the royalty that gets that stuff. The Armory, my husband is very interested in old weapons and guns, and he would have loved all this stuff. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, this looks like Doctor Who, Gallifreyan. I didn't watch Doctor Who. The first time I watched Doctor Who was when I was on this trip, but now that means more to me than it did before. I don't know why there's Gallifreyan in the Tower of London. I said this tower certainly has a violent and bloody history, and so I talked about I just took pictures of some of these things. Being a prisoner in the Tower of London wasn't necessarily all doom and gloom. Some richer prisoners were allowed to bring their family and servants with them. Prisoner Sir Walter Raleigh's son, Carew, was born and baptized in the tower in 1605. So, you know, going to the tower, if you're rich enough, I guess it's like anywhere else, right? You can buy your way into any kind of comfort. Lots of gold, and then the gift shop. I said, of course there's a gift shop, but I've gotten a lot better at not needing to buy something every time. So just, I mean, pages and pages and pages, all the same. Just made it really fast. Watch this little play. We're in the right place at the right time. And then we went up on the top, and they had these cool kind of sculptures up there. I got to try on a battle helmet. This is it says, it's not all soldiers and prison and crown jewels. Apparently the tower was also a wild animal habitat for a while. Pretty interesting. I'd forgotten all about that till I opened this book up to show it to you. And then the celebration of the tower's wild history, there are these cool animal sculptures all over, and they're just kind of made of like chain link, like layered and layered around each other. That was very cool, the Menagerie. So that was like a thing that they, you know, they didn't have zoos, and a lot of these animals were super exotic to them. So they just brought them and let them roam around the Tower of London. So then the ravens, it talks about, there's legend has it that the prophecy is, in the absence of the ravens, the tower and his kingdom would fall. And so the ravens have stayed there forever because it will protect the Tower of London. And then this one, I said, for some reason, this monument listing those killed at the tower made the whole thing sad and real to me like nothing else did. And they just kind of had all the names of all the, not all the people, but a lot of people who'd been killed in the Tower of London. So then you kind of remember it's not just a cool old place, like people died there. And of course, as we're leaving, I had to get my picture taken with the Tower Guard. But I'm glad I did. And of course, the guy in the Beefeater, that was fun. So I added a little blue and red stripe to my castle. And then we get to like my bucket list. And I think I wrote on here, if I had ever actually taken the time to make a bucket list, Stonehenge would have been #1 on it. This is something I dreamed of my whole life. And this is why my sister was able to convince me to step out of my comfort zone and go to England, because I wanted to see Stonehenge. She knew I wanted to see Stonehenge. We drove out there, and it was kind of a dismal day. This is a bookmark, but the day we were there was a little bit more gray and kind of cold. But bless their hearts, they let me stay as long as I wanted, even though they went back to the car. So I've got another, just a strip holding my little flyer. I have the map, probably the same map. Over here, I wrote about how I felt about that. We saved it for Saturday because we needed to take the car. And unfortunately, the good weather we'd had, my whole visit had finally run its course, and it was gray, rainy, and quite cold for our day at Stonehenge. So Alice came with us. You can see we're warm. That's probably a postcard. I wrote, yeah, it was awesome. And actually this picture, maybe not this picture or the next picture, has been my desktop screensaver ever since. So like 9 years. Because, I don't know, Stonehenge is mysterious and awesome. And look how happy I look. I was very happy to get to finally go to Stonehenge. We got a free audio guide. You can see we're all bundled up. It was really cold. And they didn't want to stay as long as I did. So it said they got too cold and were done looking at a bunch of giant rocks. But they told me to take as long as I needed, so I stayed probably an hour longer. The sun even came out for a while, which was nice. Just took all these cool pictures. I said, I love that this little tiny rope about knee-high works to keep people from getting too close. Of course, there's security guards too, but the fence just struck me as funny. You know, they got this little tiny fence, and people obey it, and they don't go. Yeah, just Stonehenge. I said, I have no idea whether there's 2 girls running around wearing chicken suits, but they were, and it was funny. So they got in my scrapbook. Stonehenge, just, you know, bucket list. So yeah, lots of pictures. This is the one that's on my screensaver right now, or my desktop right now. Because by the time I had been there, like, people were leaving. And so it's usually super touristy, but maybe the fact that it was a cold day, you know, it wasn't the most sunshiny, beautiful day, people didn't come. So I really got a lot of time to myself with a bunch of big giant rocks. So we were going to go to Bath after we went to Stonehenge, but we ran out of time. I said I spent a lot longer at Stonehenge than I think Julie had expected, and we once again ran out of time. Instead, we went to a little town where Julie lives that had some of my beloved Roman ruins, and this was a big, like, an amphitheater here. I said, interesting, the town is featured in a book series that I love. So it was a huge geek out for me. And so I made some little Roman columns with my silhouette. I don't know if you can see that they're dimensional. So they have 2, you know, I cut the base and then I cut the little tops. And then I ripped it because they are like broken down columns on here. So this was really cool. And then like I said, the pesky time thing, we got to the site near the end of the day. Julie chose to stay in the car, but Alice and Kim came with me. So a couple more little broken towers, Roman ruins. And then we dashed over to try and see the Roman baths and museum in the town, but the baths were closed and the museum is about to close. Thankfully, the museum workers took pity on me and let me in for free. For the remaining 15 minutes they were open, I got to see some really cool old things. So these giant mosaics, they're beautiful and amazing, good shape for 2,000-year-old floors. I just love this old Romany stuff. You guys know that because you hopefully watched my Italy books where I actually went to Rome and saw real Roman ruins. And I said, okay, I had a fantastic time in England, but gave up the chance for a couple of extra days so that Julie and I could take the Eurostar train to Disneyland Paris. It was a sacrifice worth making. And I just said, this is the cutest little pint-sized bottle of milk I've ever seen. You know, in America, we get those half gallons, and this was like 2 cups. So anyway, that's my volume 2 of my England 2013 book. And if you didn't see the first video, I am going to be able to now redo these slate gray spines with the black mica. So I'm super excited about that. Okay, in a day or 2, I will post volume 3 of this trip, which is Disneyland Paris. Thanks for watching.